Hi, welcome back to Bookworm. Today's book is about something almost everyone wants, but very few people feel truly safe having. Connection. Not the kind where you're just talking to someone, not the kind where you're technically together, but the kind where you feel emotionally held, where you can reach for someone and trust that they'll still be there. A lot of us struggle in relationships and immediately turn the blame inward. We tell ourselves we're too sensitive, too emotional, too needy, or that we're asking for something unrealistic. This book helped me see that those stories aren't true. Hold Me Tight is built around a simple but powerful idea. Most relationship pain doesn't come from lack of love. It comes from fear of losing connection. Fear doesn't always show up as fear. Sometimes it shows up as anger, sometimes as silence, sometimes as pulling away right when closeness starts to matter. And that's why so many relationship patterns repeat, even when people care deeply about each other. If you've ever felt close to someone and then suddenly guarded, if you've ever wanted reassurance but didn't know how to ask without feeling weak. If you've ever found yourself arguing about small things when the real issue felt much bigger, this book will probably feel very familiar. What I appreciate about Hold Me Tight is that it doesn't frame relationships as problems to solve. It frames them as emotional systems shaped by attachment, safety, and the nervous system. As you watch this video, I don't want you to analyze yourself or your partner. You don't need to label anything or come to conclusions. Just notice what feels recognizable. Sometimes understanding begins before change. And before we continue, if you enjoy calm, honest conversations about relationships, emotional safety, and personal growth, please like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and it lets me know this kind of content matters to you. All right, let's gently step into the ideas behind Hold Me Tight and explore why love can feel so meaningful and so scary at the same time.
Forever, poets and philosophers have tried to pin down this thing we call love. They've called it a mystery, a madness, a fleeting emotion. But what if they were all looking in the wrong place? What if love isn't some grand mystery at all, but a fundamental survival code, something that's actually hardwired right into our biology? In this explainer, we're going to decode that program. We're going to start to understand love for what it really is, a vital, life-sustaining need.
And our guide for this is the incredible Dr. Sue Johnson. She's a clinical psychologist whose work, honestly, completely changed the game. She developed something called emotionally focused therapy, or EFT for short, and it looks at our relationships through the lens of our deepest, most basic emotional needs. Her book, Hold Me Tight, isn't just another self-help book. Think of it more like a map to the human heart, one that's based on decades of solid scientific research into what really makes love work.
You know, this old Celtic saying really just nails it. We live in the shelter of each other. Just take a second and let that sink in. It suggests that our most important relationships, they're not just a bonus or an accessory to a happy life. No, they are our primary shelter. They're our safe harbor. And that feeling of safety, that sense of having a place to go when the storms of life inevitably hit, that's the foundation of everything we're about to explore together.
Okay, so here's the roadmap for our journey today. First, we're going to unpack why love is a primal need, just as basic as food or water. Then, we'll get into what happens when that connection feels threatened, this raw fear called primal panic. We'll look at the negative cycles that pull us apart, these dances of distress. But then, we're going to turn a corner. We'll learn how to build real emotional safety, discover what that secure connection actually feels like in our own bodies, and finally, see how all of this knowledge gives us the power to actually rewrite our love stories for the better.
I'm sure you've heard the messages your whole life. Be strong, be independent, don't be needy. This idea that depending on another person is some kind of weakness is just baked into our culture. But what if that's all completely wrong? What if this new science of love is telling us that our powerful drive to bond with another person isn't a flaw at all? In fact, it's one of the smartest survival instincts we have.
And really, the clues have been there for a long time.
Back in the 1940s, researchers noticed that babies in orphanages who had food, who had shelter, but had no one to hold them, no one to connect with, were literally failing to thrive. Then this brilliant psychiatrist, John Bowlby, started to connect the dots. He proposed this radical idea that our need for connection wasn't just a sentimental feeling, it was a built-in survival strategy. And then years later, Mary Ainsworth's famous experiments proved just how vital that bond is. But the biggest breakthrough, the real game changer, came in the 1980s. That's when scientists finally realized that this powerful attachment system doesn't just switch off when we become adults. It's the very same operating system that runs our adult romantic relationship.
So let's be absolutely crystal clear about this. When we talk about attachment, we are not talking about being needy or codependent. We're talking about a biological imperative, a survival code that's written deep into our DNA. I mean, think about it. Our ancestors who stayed connected to the tribe, who looked out for each other, they're the ones who survived. That drive is our inheritance. It's a fundamental need from the moment we are born until the moment we die. We are all, every one of us, looking for a safe harbor in the storm, and that harbor is supposed to be another person.
And this really brings us to the absolute core of it all. Underneath pretty much every argument you've ever had, whether it's about the laundry or money or who forgot to call the plumber, there's one much deeper question being asked. It's a question we almost never say out loud. And that question is simply, are you there for me? Can I really count on you? Do I actually matter to you? This is the fundamental question of love. And the answer, or the perceived answer, shapes everything.
So if our need for connection is a hardwired survival instinct, it makes perfect sense that the threat of losing that connection would set off some serious alarm bells. And we're not talking about just mild disappointment here. For our brains, for our nervous systems, this can feel like a genuine life or death emergency.
This alarm actually has a name. It's called primal panic. When we feel our partner pulling away, or we feel that sense of emotional distance, it hits a big red button in our brain's ancient fear center, the amygdala. It's like the smoke detector in your house suddenly starts screaming. And when that happens, our rational, thinking, problem-solving brain, it just goes completely offline. We're not thinking clearly at all. We are in pure survival mode. So that flood of anger, or that wave of sadness, or that intense fear, it's not an overreaction. It's a primal, totally logical response to a perceived danger.
Now, when this panic hits, we usually go down one of two well-worn paths. Some of us pursue, we get louder, we start criticizing, we demand a response. What we're really doing is banging on the door, trying to get any kind of reaction to prove that we're not alone. Then others withdraw. We shut down, we go silent, we build a wall around ourselves. We're trying to numb the pain by acting like we don't care. But here's the absolute key to all of this. Pursue and withdraw look like total opposites, but they are both fueled by the exact same terror of disconnection.
And of course, when a pursuer and a withdrawer get into a relationship, their survival strategies just clash head-on, creating these predictable, incredibly painful loops. Dr. Johnson calls them demon dialogues. It's like a terrible dance where both people know all the steps by heart, but neither one knows how to stop the music. You start to think your partner is the problem, but the real enemy is the dance itself.
So there are three main dances of distress. First, you have find the bad guy. That's where you're both just pointing fingers, locked in a cycle of blame. Then there's freeze and flee, which is that dangerous, cold silence when both partners have just given up. But the most common one, by far, is the protest polka. This is that classic pursue-withdraw cycle. One partner leans in, protesting the distance with criticism, and the other leans back, protesting the criticism by withdrawing. And of course, the more one person pursues, the more the other withdraws, and that vicious cycle just spins faster and faster and faster.
Now this is where we really have to look below the surface, at what's going on inside. On the outside, the pursuer looks angry, maybe even demanding. But underneath all that, the fuel for that fire is a feeling of being desperately alone, invisible, unimportant. And on the outside, the withdrawer looks cold, maybe indifferent, like they don't care. But inside, they're often drowning in feelings of hopelessness and failure, feeling totally inadequate. The truth is, they're both in pain. They both desperately want to connect, but the very strategies they're using to protect themselves are the exact things that are pushing their partner further away.
I want you to really let this one sink in, because this is probably the single biggest mindset shift you can make in your relationship. The fight is almost never about the thing you think you're fighting about. That's just the symptom. The real disease is the broken connection. The anger, the criticism, the demands, they're just a protest. They are a desperate, clumsy attempt to say, "Where are you? Come back to me. I need you. I need to feel safe with you again."
So, okay, if disconnection is the problem, then just learning better communication skills is kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. It's not the real cure. The cure isn't about learning how to argue better. It's about creating a deep, unshakable sense of emotional safety. It's about learning to change the music of your relationship so you can stop doing that painful dance of distress and start creating a whole new dance of connection.
And the answer to that huge question, are you there for me, can be found in a really simple acronym, ARE. It stands for accessibility, responsiveness, and engagement. Accessibility is about that feeling that I can reach you, that you're open to me, that the door isn't locked. Responsiveness is knowing that if I reach out to you, especially when I'm feeling hurt or scared, you'll actually respond to my emotions. And engagement is that deep, gut-level knowing that you value me, that you cherish me, and that you're going to stay close. ARE. These three things are the absolute essential ingredients of a secure, loving bond.
And here's the really cool part. When that ARE connection is strong and consistent, it's not just a nice idea or a warm feeling. It has a profound, physical, measurable impact on our bodies. It literally changes our biology. It reshapes the way we experience the entire world.
Just take a moment right now and think about this for yourself. Can you bring to mind a time when you felt completely safe, completely seen, and connected with someone you love? What did that actually feel like in your body? Was it a warmth in your chest? Maybe your shoulders relaxed and dropped a little. Maybe it was just the ability to take a full, deep breath for the first time all day. That feeling, that's not your imagination. That is your biology at work.
I mean, the science on this is just incredible. Feeling securely connected to someone actually calms our entire nervous system down. Our bodies produce less of the stress hormone cortisol. They've done these brain scans where they tell someone they're about to get a small electric shock, and if that person is holding the hand of a partner they trust, their brain literally registers less pain. Think about that. Our partners act as hidden regulators of our emotional and even our physical state. We are biologically designed to be stronger, healthier, and more resilient together.
And a key player in this whole biological symphony is a hormone called oxytocin. You've probably heard it called the cuddle hormone or the love hormone. It gets released during those moments of positive connection. A hug, a meaningful look, a kind word. Oxytocin is basically the brain's neurochemical reward for creating safety and connection. It calms our fear centers, it builds trust, and it makes us want to draw even closer. It's nature's way of saying, yes, this right here, this is good. Do more of this.
So what's the big takeaway from all this science? It's not just a bunch of interesting facts. It's a map. It's a map that shows us the way out of all that distress and toward a stronger, more resilient connection. It gives us the power to stop being powerless characters in a painful story and to actually become the authors of a brand new one.
You see, this understanding just changes everything. When you can see your partner's angry pursuit not as a personal attack, but as a desperate protest for connection, your own defensiveness just melts away. Blame gets replaced by empathy. And instead of getting stuck on who's right and who's wrong, you can focus on the real issue, finding your way back to each other. This is how real, lasting trust is built. And once that foundation of safety is solid, all the other problems, the money, the chores, the chaos of life, they all become so much easier to solve together.
And, here's the most hopeful part of all of this. You are not trapped in your negative cycle. The moment that you and your partner can both step back and just name the dance, the moment you can say, oh, hey, look, we're doing that protest polka again. In that moment, you are no longer controlled by it. Recognizing the dance is the first and most powerful step you can take to changing the music for good.
We've gone all the way from the biology of our brains to the very heart of our relationships. But it really all boils down to one simple truth. Our need for safe, emotional connection isn't a weakness, it's our greatest strength. And it's a strength that we can actively build day by day. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. Based on everything we've talked about, what is one small conversation you could start today to create just a little more safety, a little more connection with the person who matters most to you?
Welcome back. Before you move on, I want to slow things down for a moment because this book isn't something you just consume and forget. If Hold Me Tight resonated with you, it's probably because you recognize something familiar, a reaction, a pattern, a feeling you didn't always have words for. One of the most important things this book reminds us of is that wanting closeness doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. We are wired for connection. And when that connection feels uncertain, our nervous system reacts, often faster than our rational mind can keep up. That's why love can feel confusing, why we sometimes push away what we want most, why we protect ourselves even in relationships that matter deeply. Understanding this doesn't magically fix everything, but it does something just as important. It replaces shame with compassion. You don't need to judge yourself for how you react. You don't need to force yourself to be less emotional or more independent. Sometimes the real work begins by recognizing that your need for safety and reassurance is valid. You don't have to change your relationships overnight. You don't have to confront anyone or make big decisions right now. Even awareness on its own can soften patterns that have felt stuck for years. If this video helped you feel a little more seen or understood, please take a moment to like it. And if you want more conversations like this, slow, thoughtful, and emotionally grounded, make sure you're subscribed to Bookworm. If you feel comfortable, I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. What is one moment in a relationship where you wished you felt safer to be fully yourself? Thank you for being here and for giving yourself the space to reflect. Be gentle with what comes up for you after this. I'll see you in the next one.